Welcome.
Today on the Love Change podcast, we're going to talk about something that a client of mine showed up with, which was that he would beat himself up about changing too late. So there was a challenge in his life, and he was seeing the opportunities out of that challenge. And as he was looking at those opportunities, he immediately heard a voice in his head say, what a disgrace that you come up with this so late. What have you been doing all this time?
Wow.
And that kind of thinking even prevented him from stepping into those solutions. I myself know, for instance, when I discover something that makes my life way more comfortable, let's say a great massage place or a great restaurant, I'm like, why did I find out about this now? Why did I not find out about this sooner? Those are things you find, but eventually there are also decisions you make that make your life easier. And whenever I make a decision that makes my life easier, I do hear myself thinking, damn, I've had my head up my ass all these years. Um, how does that affect us? What do we do with that voice? Let's jump into that today with lovely Kay.
Welcome, everyone, to the Love Change podcast or the Amor Mutuo podcast. We do this every week because we care for being authentic and showing up all the growing pains when we go through change. Because we find it important to share exactly the parts that we usually like to hide under the carpet and just come out shiny the other way. So, welcome. I'm going to start the conversation.
You are going to start the conversation?
We're going to start the conversation.
Yes. Do you have an example
Interesting topic.
of you beating yourself up afterwards or beforehand for making some change?
Plenty, definitely. I kind of, when you announced the topic, was thinking about it, seeing your cousin today, and then he said he was working in a job before, and kind of was from the second week he was super unhappy, but then it took him almost 6 months to walk out of that place.
Yeah.
And he was like, what was I doing for those 6 months? And I thought, what was I doing for all those years?
12 years.
Not 12, not necessarily 12, but definitely there were episodes of years in between where I was kind of holding on, and it really made me think how much I was not paying attention of how unhappy I was. And I think this was really interesting because he was beating himself up for those 6 months, and I was thinking, wow, okay, took you a couple of years to realize and also to see that some things I would not have done for such a long period of time again.
Tell me more.
Yeah, to work in those jobs in the way I felt, like you start and literally week 2, maybe week 4, you're like, it's not going to work. And then you can decide to push through for X amount of months or years. Or you're just like honest enough to yourself to be like, you know what? No thanks.
But when you look at the decisions that you postponed, sometimes it's work related, sometimes it's a friendship or relationship, where you live, whatever. How does that show up for you when you're like afterwards? You're like, I should have done this sooner. Does it motivate you? Does it actually make you less on point? What does it do to you?
I think it is a double-sided sword as such. You really got to look at it from those two perspectives, because for me it also starts, you might rationalize something, but you might not be ready to really change. You know, like if you sit in option A and you have option B, C, D for different jobs, then it's much easier to move. But if you just know that you don't want to have option A, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Then it's sometimes difficult to just go into the gray zone and figure it out from there.
Fair enough.
You know, so I think this is a bit like the difficulty in that. So for me also, like my last job in Germany, I resigned despite not having anything in Outlook.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then they got me back, and then I got the new job that I signed up for. So it was much easier. But if you just know you don't want to be where you are, but you don't know where you want to go, then it's really difficult.
For sure. Yeah, not knowing where you want to go definitely doesn't create movement, because then you have to be comfortable with stepping in the I don't know.
Yeah, you kind of create space if you step into this space of I'm making space for something new. So you create something good, but it's the most difficult one. And then when it comes to personal development, for me, you can rationalize a change. Like if I look at the things I was reading, posting, writing years ago, I understood so, like in my head, I understood so much in which headspace I want to be, but I wasn't living it. So that is also a process. Like you got to put it in your brain, and then it goes into your whole body. But that rationalizing until really embodying it, that can also be a long process.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the long processes, some things you know from the beginning, you know, it's not for me. But then, okay, what does that mean? Takes you a while before you act upon it or embody it, whatever it is. And then afterwards, are you finding yourself celebrating that it took you so long? Are you finding yourself being critical on yourself that it took you the amount of time it took?
Extremely critical. I'm always in
And
this
what
camp.
does that critical do to you? Does it make you faster to change next time, or like,
Unfortunately not.
yeah,
That's what I'm observing as well.
this is exactly what I
Yeah.
was.
And I find that sometimes really leaves you in a weird headspace because you're like, oh my gosh, I have been such a dumb ass to like sit in that for such a long time.
Yeah,
Blunt as that, I really have
yeah,
those
that's
thoughts.
what he was saying as well, and
Yeah.
that's why I find the topic interesting, because the same situation could also create a different internal dialogue, because you could also be like, whoa, look at this big breakthrough. How long did I not know that this was just 2 decisions away from a new life? Wow, look how nice things are now. I am curious what else is out there. So in that sense, you use that shift that took you a long time to accelerate how much time it takes you to make the next and the next and the next. So I find it interesting to see, because I myself have been able to change this in myself. So initial reaction when I figure out something that took me the longest time to figure out is like, why am I a slowpoke? What is this? This grace. Like I feel
Disgrace
like,
is a good one.
disgrace is how I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't want to feel like that. So that motivates me to be like, what else is out there that I'm beating around the bush or skirting around it, that I might have the awareness, or what are my blind spots? And the reason why I've done that is, of course, it makes the time it takes you to go through change less. You're more in cyclical, and you accept the part that you didn't know, and you feel like the dumbass when you figure it out is part of the cycle. But also just because it results in a way more positive self-image. And with this client, in example, he was actually turning into a freeze because of that, because this voice that would judge him would already be present beforehand. And
in what sense beforehand?
yeah, you have an option to make yourself life easier. Why don't you use that option? Yeah, because then I will hear myself saying, you dumbass, what took you so long?
That would be the upfront freeze.
Upfront he would freeze about. So he was gridlocked and trying to work on how to shift free from that.
Yeah.
And I just found it interesting to have that conversation, because it also made me aware of how much the inner critic and the overthinker are working in preventing you from taking leaps and steps and just experimenting. Because if you look at it as an experiment, you don't know what's going to come out of it. Let's say you decide to take 3 experiments every month. You decide what they are. They're just out of your comfort zone. Boom, you do it. If you make a discovery, eureka. If not, no problem. But this perfectionist and this inner critic and this overthinker really pressing you afterwards, like you say also, harshly critical, slowing down your momentum, actually killing the celebration of a breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know?
Kinda, yeah, I agree on the part killing the celebration of your breakthrough, but at the same time, like the part I like in it might not feel so nice, but to realize where you at today, like the example for me to have, like, I should have walked away from my jobs in the past, but I didn't have enough self-worth for myself that I was like, you know what,
You need
that's
to grow
just not for
something,
me.
yeah.
So when I see it today, there is a certain sadness about it that I didn't walk away for like earlier.
So,
But at the same time, I'm like, look at yourself. You have really grown your self-worth. If that would happen again in a different coat,
you'll be there.
you be there.
No.
You be on your feet and you'll be like, no, thanks.
No.
So that part, like the growth,
I completely agree.
that I really celebrate. The okay, dump ass haven't done it earlier, is there, but the other one kind of balances the whole package, which I really like because I celebrate the part that is really me in it. So I find that good. And the other voice, yeah, can work on it for sure. But it's also, for me, it's also okay to think like, look at you. How have people been treating you in the past? And you just allowed that. You know?
Yeah, it's okay to be angry about certain things because it creates the energy to shift.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that you also agree with, you find yourself being critical of yourself because something, let's say it takes you 8 months to climb the Kilimanjaro, and then you're up there and you're like, you slowpoke took 8 months, you know? But you did climb the fucking mountain.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to, instead of being like, how long did it take me, to be like, actually, what did I accomplish in getting up here? What did I go through? Acknowledge all the little steps that were involved and compound those into more confidence to be like, what's next? What's the next climb? What's the next summit? And
I kind of like, I don't know, I don't find so much negativity in it. For me, it's also the connection to a growth mindset. So if I tell myself I'm a slowpoke,
it's motivating.
Yeah, for me it really is, because I'm also like, if I look at my company now, I'm like, okay, doing it for a year now could be so much further. So that also makes me accelerate more and makes me
one
think
part of
more
it
in
is
the
hunger.
10x
The
part.
hunger, like, okay, how do I go faster? But that's a positive frame, and I feel like your slowpoke is it's definitely judging your process, not acknowledging the struggle.
Yeah, kind of also kicking my ass. I don't know, if I look at myself and I'm like, I don't know, the first, I don't know, XYZ weeks, I didn't have any pictures online, and I'm like, what have you been doing lately? Like, you know, just put the product on somewhere, take pictures, fine. It doesn't need to be a perfect photography, but my sense of perfection was preventing me from that. So to say to myself, slowpoke, perfectionist, not so great. It doesn't sound great, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, today I just put it somewhere, take pictures, boom, done.
Fighting fire with fire. I get what you're saying.
You know, so I think there's like, you got to look at both sides. So for me, the criticism part for myself, it's not a bad type of, it's not a destructive type of criticism.
That's good.
It is
That's
a pushing
positive.
one.
No,
it is a pushing one.
Yeah, it's good.
Might
it's
be
good
connected to the pusher.
No, it's
enough,
good to
but
acknowledge that you experience it as a constructive form of criticism.
I think to look at it from that perspective and be like, is it destructive or is it constructive? Then it's okay to be like, you have been a slowpoke. Okay, you have sitting with your thumb up your nose and you haven't done anything for 2 months, whatever, you know. So that's also something that
it's so little compassion in it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but
you don't need compassion all the time.
I'm not saying I don't need compassion, but coming from where I'm coming from, there is not much compassion for myself.
Yeah, and
so that much compassion.
That's the question. Like, what accelerates the cycles of change? Is it a stick? Is it a carrot? Is it because this kind of feels like a stick, like chop chop. What is this? Cha cha.
It's the softest stick I can have.
Okay.
Like what you said yesterday, you're like, you're killing yourself doing so much work again.
Yeah.
And I looked at myself in the mirror in the evening and I was like, you have no idea. This is the softest stick I can take to beat myself. Really, the way I'm working now. 6 o'clock, I was like, I gotta grab my bike, go home. 6 o'clock. I was like, wow. So, you know, it's like,
I find it difficult about that thing is that you're comparing to a past that I don't think you aspire to recreate, you know? And the past was created with a stick.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, why does the future also require a stick? Is there not a better tool, like something that gravity pulls you towards and something way more aligned than a stick? Because a stick is far from alignment.
I don't find that stick so negative, to be honest.
You like the stick. It's okay,
It's a
people.
soft stick.
A
It's
soft,
a soft
stick,
stick.
is welcome.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because I've been doing the experiment with myself for a long
Yeah.
time as well. And a lot of the reframing that I've done that allows me to step way more often into a flow state is just staying hungry, staying motivated, staying like on point. But when confronted with stagnation or lack of progress,
Mm-hmm.
to zoom in on all the successes and generate more confidence and whatever is required for the current obstacle, that allowed me to jump way faster than I have ever before. That's why I'm like, and that's, yeah, I also am a stick person. Like, grab a couple of sticks and just like blisters on your hands from using the stick. But it leaves you beat up. It leaves you in a state of mind that is how do I say it? Hostile. You are slightly hostile towards yourself. And a hostile environment is not an environment where you, per se, come out the best version of yourself.
I agree, or I understand where you're coming from. Like, I see where you're coming from, but doing what I'm doing is not creating a hostile feeling. Because what I'm doing is really something that I love. So if I beat myself with a stick because I don't know how XYZ works, then I'm like, yo, step up your game, K. Grab the stick and do it. But it's something that I really love, it's not pushing myself not dragging myself into the office to launch another fashion collection that I actually don't give a shit about. So I think that's the difference. And I understand the hostility in that, but that's not what I'm like. That's
Doesn't
maybe
sit with
my push out of the comfort zone and my push to achieve more is the stick. Yeah, maybe not the best motivator, but I don't find it hostile.
In lack of something better, it's understandable to reach back to the stick. All I'm saying is, are there better things out there?
Maybe, yeah. But if I don't know, if I look, maybe
imagine the day that you discover that you don't need to stick and actually are blazing like fire.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that day.
And that day, will you grab the stick to beat yourself up because it took you so long to find it?
But I don't know, at the same time, if I think about my episode of cold showers,
yeah,
there was another day where I was like celebrating to take a cold shower.
I find that a different thing. It's like this physical discomfort.
But it's good. It pushes you.
Yeah, but like the way you motivate yourself to do that can be like, do it, you naggy little bitch, or do it like you did it yesterday, you champion.
Okay, that's your part. Okay, I get that.
It's a different conversation in your head, and one of them is more comfortable, or not per se more comfortable. It's cheering yourself on. How do you like cheer yourself on? Like, if you're a coach of a team, you want to be the coach with the stick, or you want to be the coach who pushes people through with like a motivational speech.
Now it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Took a while to get there, but now it makes sense. Okay.
Patience, people. It's free and scarce, but it's free.
It's very free. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know.
You like the stick? You're gonna be the stick coach.
No, I don't like the stick. I'm thinking about it. But also, if I think about the coach is also he's strict. She's strict on people to push them.
Oh, you don't mess around.
And then you champion people up,
Yeah.
But yeah.
How much championing is happening right now? That's the question.
For myself?
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Oh, that's good. That's positive.
Also, emotionally, what I'm going through is quite a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's positive.
Also creating a soft space for myself to allow myself all those emotions. So I think that's also good.
Nice.
Have the patience for that. Have the time. Create the time for that. So yeah, I think there is a lot.
Super.
So no sticks for you anymore?
Plenty of sticks. Sometimes you just need to look at the stick. You don't need to grab it.
The banana stick?
No, like I think for me, I've discovered that the drive from a gravitational pull, getting pulled towards something, is way more successful than the stick pushing you in whatever direction. The stick, like the joke is like I need to give my child an adjusting slap, but I like adjusted them incorrectly, so I needed to adjust them a couple of more times.
Yeah.
So these pushes, like do this, do that, but actually if you approach it from a pull, like what is the goal, what version of myself am I creating, and just being very fired up about being that version of yourself and championing yourself, all the versions that you've gone through. And then if you hit a wall and you're like struggling, to be compassionate for yourself and remind yourself how bad you wanted that thing that you wanted, and why you're here in this mess, and reminding yourself of how many messes you've been through, and that you do have the power and the perseverance and all the things to move through all those negative voices that you might be experiencing when you're in gridlock, is a way nicer experience than, oh, you're feeling bad about where you are? I don't care. Here's a stick. You're going to keep doing it. Yeah. It's like a different energy to it, you know?
Yeah, I think I'm not in that space. That's why I'm struggling so much
You
to
have a happy
understand it.
stick.
No, it's like as much stick as needed to kind of like get myself up. You know, when you're in a boxing ring and you're on the floor, then you also need to like collect yourself. But you also like you feel the pain and you're like, actually I would like to stay down. But I also wanna
I've been in the boxing thing. Actually, the stick is the person in front of you. So in the boxing ring, the you have to show up for the stick. You know, it's a different thing. And why you do that is because you want to show that you're a harder, faster, smarter, more skilled fighter than the other person. So
yeah.
it's like in that sense being between a rock and a hard place. Like we'll go back, we'll go forward. It's all difficult.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I find, and that's why I find the coaching example also interesting, because if you're truly experiencing competition, there's something you need to overcome. There is a battle. There is a thing. You can fight that fight or dance that dance with a big smile on your face, or going through a struggle. And I think the version of you that goes through that whole thing with a big smile on their face is the version that doesn't need a stick to get there.
But sometimes the circumstances just don't allow you to go.
I agree. No, I've lived a lot with stick. And sometimes you lack other resources.
Yeah, I mean, my best example right now is really my emotional state. Going through 5 weeks of chiropractor sessions. Being like emotionally completely meh everywhere, and then I just like I wake up and I feel like shit, and I cannot just go through it with a smile, because then I also would feel like I'm not allowing the full spectrum. Do you know where
you're going?
I do, yeah. I'm going.
But you use that stick to do what then in this sense?
I use that stick to feel all those emotions.
Okay, that's a different
thing. And that might hurt.
Yeah.
But I feel if I would put a smile on my face to go through that, I would not be.
Nah, that's not what I meant. I think you're missing. Like what I'm trying to say is, you here in your example are explaining like, hey, I allow myself to feel those things, and I don't force myself to put a smile on my face. And that's the part that I would say that would be the stick. If you would force yourself to put a smile on your face. That's you grabbing a stick, being like, no, none of these feelings. Act like nothing's happening. Boom, smile, be perfect. You know?
Okay.
That's the version I would call the stick. And the version that you're not doing that is actually you being like, hey, you can do this. You can feel all these things.
Okay.
You can move through all those emotions.
Then I guess I can live without a stick. That's what we just found out.
Big breakthrough. End of the episode. I'm going to stop on my highest point. I think there's not more to achieve for me today. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you so much. Thank you for liking, sharing, dropping topics at us. We really love to pick up what you picked up from us and what resonated. So thank you so much for that.
Love change out.
Bye bye.